everybody. Welcome back to today's episode of the React series that's fast becoming a just a day-by-day look at the trial that's happening at the moment. So let's get this out of the way. Let's try and do a live recording of the introduction. For those of you that aren't aware, or if this is your first time to any one of my streams or channels or videos or wherever the hell this is going out these days, my name is Ben Cardall, and I am the author of the best-selling book, The Monographs, which details the real-world methods for the skill set of Sherlock Holmes, how to develop them and how to train them and how to utilize them in all walks of life and everyday situations. And I now spend my days teaching people from all over the world, including some of the big names in the field, how to do this for the protection of themselves and those around them. So if that sounds like anything that you'd be interested in, then by all means do continue watching the video. If you want to subscribe to the channel, great. If you don't, that's entirely up to you as well. I ain't going to force you to do anything because it's more about the information than anything else. So yes, she's in early. Good morning, Miss Riffraff. I do hope you're keeping well. So we're gonna try and get straight into this as quickly as possible, just to catch you up in terms of some of the things that I've been up to. We went over to Nottingham for a session where we did an interview with a tattooist on modern day symbology and reading people this way from a tattooist's perspective, which was very interesting to hear the different side of appreciation from the people that perform it, from the people that do it, from the people that scribe it in that area. And then we did an I Memorize session and a couple of things for the new episode in the web series. That's the new piece that's on there, and I got some additions which way around to the little symbols that are on my arm too. Good morning, Julie. I hope you're keeping well. So yes, keep your eyes peeled for that. That's coming real soon. The podcast interview will be out on Friday. Nathan Lee Tattoos is an incredible bloke, lovely man, incredible channel. So if you're not following his stuff and you're into that thing, then are you even on social media? Really? Perhaps reconsider all of your life decisions at that stage. Not all of the life decisions, just your opinions about tattoos and the like. So today is the big one. The big one, as in the one of the people on one side of the verses thing in the title. So we're going to be looking at the cross-examination of Mr. Depp himself. So this is just one of the videos. It is one of the ones that is over an hour long, but this is day 3, part 1. That we're going to be looking at today. So if it is that I already sound like I am a little hoarse, then just forgive me. I've been working for several hours already on some really interesting stuff, and I'd love to be able to tell you about it, but I can't. So there we go. And we'll get into that in the usual fashion here. But important to note that this isn't scripted. This is live. This is just me, you, and the details of what can be seen as close to a mimicked example of reality and feedback in terms of what's happening at that moment. So we're going to get into that shortly. Good morning, Jennifer. I do hope you're all keeping well and prepared for just how long this is going to be. So let's do it with that in mind. Here we go. It has been through the week. I've been looking at some of the stuff. I avoid the videos, obviously, but I've been looking at some of the stories about Mr. Rottenborn and the just some of the epic failures that's coming out from him. But it's interesting to read the articles from across the pond. Across the pond to me. If you're already in America and Canada, then it's not. I'm across the pond to you. But it's interesting to read from their own position and their own opinion as to how they describe either Rottenborn's steadfastness and his fierce adherence towards detail and his competence, and the others who are writing slightly less favourably about him objecting towards his own question. Now I'm curious as to why there is no sound here. Is that an advert already? What is happening?
Have you ever wondered what would happen if you actually sat down and talked with missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ?
No, I haven't.
Circuit Court of Fairfax County is now in session. The Honorable Penny Ascarati presiding. Please be seated.
Good morning. All right, do we have any preliminary matters before the jury?
Just one exhibit to hand out.
Oh, perfect. Which exhibit?
1458, Your Honor.
1458.
So what we've got already there from those opening seconds is the respect, but the nerves and the anxiety in terms of the hands cross over the groin. Not quite a fig leaf in my observation of that, but we're doing this consistently. Fig leafing was hands flat in this area with the slight more engagement of the fingers. We're looking at a higher degree of discomfort. Arguably at this stage it would be because of the information that he is well aware that's going to be discussed. We know at this stage, regardless of what your opinions are of the man, but we know him to be to private and to favour his privacy above all things at this stage. There is a degree of that being reflected in the permanent furrowing of the forehead muscles and the forehead skin, in that area, in the bowing of the head as he sat down. Yeah, let's keep going.
All right, with redactions. All right. That's already
Cannot
been
wait
turned
to
down.
hear all of the objections for hearsay.
Thank you. Anything else?
We have the thumb drive with the
With
additional.
with the knife pictures on it for me, 92 and 93. Great. Thank you. All right. I'll take any evidence you have. Perfect. All right. Anything further?
Tense in the chest, breathing tense. But again, this could be towards the anxiety that we felt before, or the fact that everything is about to just start. So there is apprehensiveness there. Maybe a mixture of both at this stage. Arguably impossible to tell at the moment. That's interesting. The activity around the spillage. The response towards cleanliness. Hands go down maybe. Yep. In front of the other, same place. There's the tension in the breathing. Again, it doesn't drop towards where we as grown-ups learn to breathe from. Sorry, opposite way around, where we as grown-ups learn to breathe from continuously here, because we have a big change in emotional upheaval compared to children who breathe very much from lower down towards the stomach, pretty much. I'm not insinuating that you should ever do this, but if you've ever seen a baby asleep, there is a lot more action going on in the stomach than there is up here. Right? That is the growth that we have as adults. To keep this up here is the tension that's happening. Freedom of motion in the chair. We've got the displacement of growing concern,
2 days
displacement
ago,
of growing
when you first took the
anxiety.
stand, you discussed your upbringing and some of the abuse that you suffered at the hands of your mother. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And you testified how she abused you physically,
On the nose again. Yes, I do.
throwing things at you, hitting you.
Yeah, there was quite a, very, very.
I'm hearing van doors hit outside, and I am expecting a parcel, so it is sod's law that it would be at this stage where you would see it. So if somebody knocks on, I'll be quick.
Forms of physical abuse.
And she abused you verbally by insulting you and your siblings, right?
Yes, she did.
And you testified that sometimes that verbal abuse, that emotional abuse was worse than the beatings, right? Do you remember that?
As a child, it has more of an opportunity to plant itself in your head.
Sure.
Yes.
So you'd agree that
That's how psychological abuse takes root. At a very early age, it gives rise to all manner of dysphoric views about oneself.
You testified that your dad wasn't abusive, but that you saw him punch walls when he was in an argument with your mother sometimes, right?
Excuse me. I witnessed my father, the only reaction that would be called a physical reaction from the abuse he was very stoically taking from my mother. I saw him maybe twice, 3 times punch a wall. Once, as I said, once he punched the corner of the wall, and I watched his hand basically shatter.
Right. Mr.
Now, this is where most of the incendiary topics happen, right? This is where most of it occurs from. There is this flawed leap in logic that if he can do that, then he must be abusive. Then there is a verification that's happening towards the claims that have gone on. Same being reflected towards Depp's character. You know, the videos obviously come out at this stage of him abusing cupboards and very much abusing himself more so than anything in terms of all of the alcohol and drugs he was pouring down his neck at that time. But that isn't about this. If you look at the nature of displacement, now this is a huge topic in psychology and therapy, and I am by no means going to do it any justice trying to describe it within 30 seconds or so right now. But essentially what it would boil down to is the conscious choice to do one thing over another because the other would cause more harm of a lasting manner. Right? If you can take that towards yourself, you can deal with the bruises and the wounds fade and all of that kind of thing. But if you do it to other people, it is a ripple effect that keeps going. Right? So for the sake of making sure that your mood has been displaced sufficiently enough, you might punch a wall. You might scream into a pillow. I'm sure we've all been there. Many times have I been there as well, right? I've worked in customer service and retail. You come home from a rageful day of dealing with human beings. You have to scream into a pillow because to keep all that inside is much more unhealthy than any other possible options that are going on, especially if you are somebody that's dealing with as many mental health concerns as he is. Right, still, and I'm referring to Depp in this instance, taking more of an opportunity to harm yourself rather than anybody else that's around you, because that's the way that you feel. It's like the opposite of nobility, right? In the way that, you know, Japanese warriors would commit seppuku and fall on their swords because of all manner of things, right? He's falling on the sword himself because he doesn't know what else to do with it. Any other outward display of those emotions of physicality or anger towards other people directly goes against his moral code.
Mr. Depp, your walls weren't the only thing that your father punched, were they? In fact, once he punched you in the face and knocked you down, didn't he?
Yes, when I was 15 years old, this was...
Tension in the lids, the forehead muscles haven't been disengaged at all, eyebrows raised, deep sadness of having to relive this as well. You can see the tension as he draws it in from the cheekbones to the fucking Jesus Christ.
In my mind, I was done with school, so he had asked me to, I believe it was something, it was very... He asked me to take the dog for a walk or something, or take out the garbage, something menial, something strange, and I just said no, and he gave me he just gave me a quick shot, pretty hefty, and yeah.
Another one of Johnny Depp's infamous laugh through the pain smiles that so many people immediately go, "Dripping delight." Oh, shut up. Look at it with the proper context of a scenario and the proper understanding of everything that is collected to form a personality from a very early age. Smiling through pain. But it's an outward reflection of how insular he is and protective of his own thoughts and his own feelings and his own ideologies regarding how he deals with this stress, right? He would rather put on a smile than admit that problem, which is a flaw of so many addicts, of which he is one, by his own admission, right? That's not a matter of dispute as part of this case.
Yeah, it rattled my head. It rattled the cage, you know, and Tweety
Sure.
birds and stuff. Sure.
So the jury hadn't heard about that before. When he punched you,
Tweety birds, obviously a cited reference towards the cartoon way of doing it, but we get an insight into the way that he talks. A menial task, so there's quite grandiose descriptions, equally matched with caricaturesque metaphors, right? You find that a lot in people who have a dark sense of humor. You find that a lot in those people, and look at the company he keeps. A lot of work with Ricky Gervais, or Gervais. To this day, still no idea how you pronounce that. Sorry, Ricky, if you ever end up watching this, which you won't, but if you do, apologies. A man with an equally dark sense of humor in this area and anybody else with a dark sense of humor that he's hung around with over this time. Does this mean that you have outwardly violent sensibilities? No, there's no correlation towards that whatsoever.
you in the face, it actually knocked you to the ground. And then when you got up, you were all too happy to take care of what he wanted you to take care of, right?
I was excited to take care of it.
Right. And yesterday, I believe that you testified, why would you hit someone to make them agree with you? It doesn't work. You gave that testimony yesterday, didn't you?
Yes.
Now, you try to conduct yourself as a gentleman, right?
Now look at the position of his arms as well. You've got the right hand coming across. Left one appears from the angle of the clothing to be on the lap this way round. As you would see, right hand down on the table or keyboard or whatever's out in front of him. There's clearly a ledge there for him to be resting on, but the left hand appears to be on here, giving the slightly elevated position in the clothing. It might be that it's flat or slightly bent underneath, but it looks to be of that kind of thinker position that one would expect of somebody who's carrying themselves with poise, control. And that's the important thing to note. He's going to be, I mean, I would imagine throughout the course of this, if we're starting off with child abuse, it's only going to get more more in depth in terms of the discussions that are due to be had. Now, if you look at that, this is a man reflecting in the thermodynamic properties of his positions, that level of control in this area, right? So there is a clear task. There is a clear notion towards the preparedness that any cross-examination is going to be designed to poke at you. We can't let it do that. Okay, so this is why he's going to have such a matched degree of control within that, which we are seeing the control area here as well. If there is any degree of tension in the arms, the forearms, the fingers, then we may see that reflected from this position. Speculation at this stage. I'm striking in with the legal comments, but we're already seeing the displaced notions of energy in terms of the twisting on the chair around the instantaneous topic of child abuse.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And you think that you live up to the standards of a Southern gentleman, right?
If he does live up to the standards of a Southern gentleman, he will be hesitant about saying yes, or I try, or I do my best, or you try and do this every day. It won't be as definitive as, yeah, I am a Southern gentleman, right? Because those guys, gentlemen en masse throughout the course of the world still conduct themselves to a point of trying to be as chivalrous as much as possible, so to be as unassuming as possible within that area, right? George Clooney would be another good example of a gentleman who is unassuming about the things that he does and how he says certain things about anything, right? If you've ever watched him take a compliment, you would understand this. Same thing is said of here. So if it proceeds forward in this way, that would provide me with an understanding in terms of where Mr. Depp is in his own head at the moment.
That was essentially, when you have deep roots in the South, in Kentucky and such, it's not just your parents, your father, your mother, it's your grandparents, it's your uncles, it's your aunts, it's this, it's that,
Just to point out as well, this is another thing that's starting to irritate me about the coverage, is that it's depicting this in such a way to try and insinuate outrage from the people that are watching it, to gain more views, gain more interest, gain more traction. Right? There is no reason for her to be on the screen for as long as what she is, other than for people to be watching her reaction and projecting things onto her at this moment. There is cause to be listening to the details that are being said here. So from the outsider perspective, this is what I referenced in terms of that study regarding celebrities and the Twitter abuse that they get in this area, and the veracity that it's given as a result purely of the traction that it gets. The veracity of certain channels that have like millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of followers for being some kind of avatar of leadership, an exemplar of the 21st century and where we should be going, just because they have a big number behind them, right? That's the same thing that this type of camera setup is designed to engineer. It's needless in terms of our positions at this moment, right? Useful from an object perspective would be to be back and forth, right? Would be back and forth, separate streams that we could view individually at separate times. There is absolutely a huge capability for us to do this both at the same time with equal degrees of accuracy. It takes a great deal of practice, but it can be done. But with it being as high priority a case as what this is, would you want to? That's the question, if there is an opportunity. So you explore the rationale for that. There is no other reason left other than to stir something up in a viewership.
Yes, raised to be a Southern gentleman, that is to say, when chivalry was still alive and allowed.
Right. And you think you live up to the standards of a Southern gentleman, correct?
I believe I do. I certainly have done my best all my life.
Paul Bettany's a good friend that you've done drugs with, right?
That's a strange question. Paul Bettany.
It's not really strange when the only reliability that the cross-examiners have at this stage is to try and tear your character down further. That's all that they have. If they're going to draw comparisons between a Southern gentleman and doing drugs with people, then that's again, none of which is relevant. None of which is relevant towards the accusations, which at this stage, given the makeup company coming out, did we see this? The makeup company calling out and insinuating she's full of baloney is hilarious, to say the least.
He's a good friend. Yes.
You've done drugs with him?
Yes, I have.
Cocaine, right?
Cocaine, yes.
Alcohol?
Alcohol, yes.
Pills, including Xanax and Adderall, right?
That I'm not so sure of.
Okay.
You're exploring the nature of of truisms in this area, right? Why would you be so cavalier with cocaine, alcohol? Not too sure about pills. Why would that be something that you would say if it wouldn't be true? That's the question that you would be asking of these kind of statements. It's a little like a rebuttal response in this way, to try and be as forthcoming as you possibly can with the details that are being discussed.
You see this app right here? It's called Audible. And using just this little app, I was able to replace my full...
From the feedback as well, you guys are quite enjoying the live streams. The only thing that's really putting me off doing them continuously is the bloody adverts.
Where's he gone?
We haven't noticed that that's more of a continuation of animating your discomfort towards it. Not this. That's just I had an itchy nose. Maybe I'm in sync with Mr. Depp at the moment. But there is remarks like this that are either going to help you release some of the tension that's growing inside of you in terms of potential notions of discomfort, to reference these kinds of things, or it's let's call it a disagreement, to be polite. It's still a way to allow these negative feelings to release, but to acknowledge them in more of a playful way than a direct way.
Your Honor, may we approach?
All right.
I just want to discuss one thing with you,
Okay.
Ms. Myers.
So this is where everything mutes again when they approach the bench and have discussions about their plan of attack, so to speak. What I find interesting as well about a lot of the cuts to her, she's very quick on the false smile, because it vanishes almost like a magic trick. Yeah. As she turns back. Right, there's nothing there. Like the opening of American Psycho. Reference to the speech. You know, the whole "I'm simply am not there." Nothing more than that. Don't go reading too far between the lines towards that analogy.
Thank you.
Manners throughout, good sign in this scenario. Now there will be those that will question his respect and his interest in terms of the proceedings, purely because the glasses that he's wearing are darkened, which is baseless. What are you basing that in? Any kind of verifiable psychological background? No. You're basing that on the perception of a social standard from wearing sunglasses inside. Right? That's the thing that would happen. Now, if you look at somebody that is as notable of a substance abuser as he, there is an opportunity for more, let's call them weaker eyes in this area, for insomniacs to share the same thing in terms of their response to light and outside. I'm by no means saying that he definitely falls in towards these other areas, but it goes so much further than just style. It goes so much further in terms of the possibilities. That is, again, one of the more annoying things about reading books on these topics or watching videos on these topics. There's 1,000,001 different people insinuating that this means this, when it's not true at all. of any observation that you make, there are variations. That's why human behavior is so prone to change. It's continually in flux. If it were anything as verifiable as that would be trying to communicate. You could apply an equation to it and get the same thing every time. You just put in the right numbers, and then boom, out comes your answer, when the reality is anything but that. All we've got here is a man wearing glasses to allow him to read. That's it.
Yes.
And you gave that testimony under oath, right?
Yes.
You gave quite a bit of testimony in that trial, right?
I wouldn't be able to judge that myself. I don't.
What kind of a question is that? But again, a verifiable truth in terms of the understanding of the question and providing forth as honest a response as you possibly can. What is quite a bit of testimony? Who judges those kinds of things? Right, this is how you would pull that kind of question apart. And instead of being as indignant within that area as one would expect him to be, is simply, well, I don't know. It's not my job to know.
It felt like a lot.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some of it. If you can turn to page 45, please, in front of you. It's page 12 of the document. There's 4 transcript pages.
I see page 12 of the document, certainly.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, again?
12 of the document, you say?
Yes, in the lower left corner, there's a page 45. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you see that on the bottom of that page, there's a discussion of Paul Bettany and the drugs that you did together. And there was a question. The question is, any sort of pills? And your answer is yes. There could have been Xanax, or if he asked for Xanax or Adderall, whatever, I would, of course, give it to him. Question, so you would supply Paul Bettany with whatever medication or controlled drugs he asked for, is that right? Answer, if he was feeling anxious or if he was feeling unpleasant, I would give him what he asked for. Question, would you give him a Xanax? Answer, yes. Did I read that right?
You certainly did, yes, sir.
And you shared, the two of you shared an enjoyment of controlled drugs or alcohol at that time, right?
The two of us were making a film together.
With respect, sir, that wasn't my question. My question was the two of you shared an enjoyment of controlled drugs and alcohol at that time. Yes or no?
At times.
Yes. And
A yes or no question, is it? You can see in terms of this is an outward, a very obvious display of Depp's control here, in terms of his awareness of how he is trying to be poked by this other guy. You enjoyed it, yes or no? It's a nuanced response. You can't put a question of enjoyment when it comes to that which you are addicted to. There's so many other things to consider.
And Ms. Heard was quite adamant that you didn't drink anymore and that you should stop using recreational drugs, right?
Oh, yes.
And she didn't like it when you were high on drugs or drunk on alcohol, right?
She didn't like it when it was her perception that I was high on drugs. Her perception is quite different than the truth.
Boom. But again, look at the control. This is still tense throughout. This is still reflective of that outward response towards reliving things that have happened that have caused difficulty, in turn relating towards the negativity that he is aware that is trying to be brought up here. Breath, control, voice remains the same. The perception is very different towards the truth. Why do you have the need to be... This is a rationale discussion here in terms of people that are going to be viewing this, and the jury, and the people in the back and everybody else. Why would you react in an explosive way when you have the correct answer behind? It's like somebody saying 2 and 2 is 5, isn't that right? Yes or no? no, that might be your perception that it's 5, but the truth is very different. When you start to do things to openly mock or present anxiety or present anger in this area, you are indicating a position of hierarchy, whether that be higher or lower in this area. You're still trying to indicate a change towards that. However, here we've just got a simple response. It is without it is without ulterior motive.
And that's what we're after, is the truth. Let's turn to, can you pull up Exhibit 178, please, Michelle?
Is that defendant's 178 or?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, that's all right, I just want to make sure.
Oh.
Mr. Depp,
Objection, Your Honor. Can we approach, please?
Nothing happened, love. You watch, we'll get another advert here now. But at this stage, we've already got a good, clear understanding as to the non-verbal communications, the reasons why things are happening, the reasons for the pauses, the reasons for the control in the positions of the arms, a slew of information that we could use as to justify the glasses that are there. But as we've said many times, even right back at the start when there was the discussion of clothing being indicative as to their motives in this area, Johnny Depp will be Johnny Depp, and she will try and carve out an image that is single towards her. There you go.
These are
Instant
Smile
adverts.
Direct Club aligners. They're laser.
So what we'll do is we'll skip it on to around 30 minutes. So we're at 16, we're skipping to 30 minutes in.
concept to visualize. Wish you were in this lunatic's proximity. Be careful out there. I adore you. Did I read that right?
You did.
You can take that down, Michelle. If you could please pull up Exhibit 153.
He knows what's coming. I'd like to know where that was coming from. If it is him or not. That's interesting. Smile through pain again. Is this going to be one of those infamous dark text messages that we're about to hear? In your own time, Mr. Rottenborn. Which is an unfortunate surname for a lawyer.
And Your Honor, we have a redacted version of this, but we'll put up the fully unredacted right now.
All right, just give counsel a moment to review.
Of course.
Your Honor, this has phone numbers in it, so.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Understood.
Just so you can see it first.
Okay.
This is where you need a good memory. Take those phone numbers home with you. Don't.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Depp, I'd like to turn your attention to the top 3 text messages on this page. These are text messages that you sent on January 17th, 2013. See that?
Hold it.
I'm sorry, I'm just reading the page.
Right. And the way these text messages are produced, sometimes there's big date skips and they're kind of jumbled in. So they're not all on the same chain.
No,
So
of course.
what I'm asking you about is just the top 3.
Certainly.
And those are texts that you wrote on January 17th, 2013, correct?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, permission to publish just those top 3 texts with identifiers and the others redacted, and move for admission of that redacted exhibit.
Okay, so if this is one of the darker ones that we've heard and not just anything to do with with abuse or drugs or Paul Bettany or anything like this, if this is one of the infamous darker ones, and he's trying to overly play his hand, as in the lawyer, trying to overly play his hand of trying to drag Johnny Depp's character down even more, he will highlight with his voice specific words that he wants them to focus on in terms of how dark or disgusting the text messages are apparently perceived to be.
As long as it's not this version, that's fine. The version
We'll put up on the screen what I propose to admit as an exhibit.
Let me see what you're going to put up on the screen
Okay.
first.
Who knew legal proceedings were as much of a PowerPoint presentation?
We have no objection to this version, Your Honor.
All right, we'll put it as redacted.
This is where the unfortunate obsessives with micro expressions would come in. Being a link towards anger, disgust, these kinds of things could just as easily be the resolute discomfort of somebody who hasn't done cocaine for quite some time.
Michelle, can you blow up the text boxes, please? On January 17th, 2013, Mr. Depp, you texted the following: "For the idiot cow," 3 exclamation points.
Ow.
Next text: "Will do. I'll smack the ugly cunt around before I let her in. Don't worry."
See that, right? Now, everyone's got an issue with the C word. Everyone's got an issue with that, it would seem. And he chose verbally to highlight smack rather than that.
And apologies again to the court and the jury for this language. And then you close by saying, "Did that worthless hooker arrive?" Did I read that right?
You did, sir.
You can take that down, please. We talked a little bit about the term monster yesterday, correct?
Yes, I've heard that word quite a lot, yes.
Yeah, and you testified yesterday.
You can hear in his voice, in the pitch change, in the lack of moisture, in the degree of slackness towards the jaw muscles, the cheek muscles in this area, that it's starting to come down a bit. Those shame is quite a strong word, but there was a degree of that there towards those responses and those texts.
Yesterday that you used that term to placate Amber, right? And I believe that you testified that it was the word that she clung to describe what was in her mind, not yours. I wrote down what you said. You remember giving that testimony?
The monster, more than anything, was Ms. Heard's way of referencing whether she perceived that I was on substances or taking substances. So the word monster it represented for her the consumption of alcohol or any other substances, whether it was actually happening or not, her perception. And so monster became her click word,
Right.
if you will.
But actually the term monster to describe yourself came from you.
Well, initially, Ms. Heard, I believe she started out with demons. She started out saying that I had demons. And then when monster was put into a conversation, which, again, I have a particular way of using words, vocabulary.
Which we said at the start, in terms of the menial, the quite erudite responses that he has in there, littered with cartoonesque animations in his metaphors. there is still that control. There is still the before some points are made. I do this, you know, if you've watched a number of my streams, I before I start, did it then. Before I start making a particular point, is in no way connected towards deceptions. Filler responses are more of a stronger link towards a thought pattern that you're trying to convey in the best way that you can, right? Which he is doing. There is nuance to his response when you look at the psychological practice of having demons versus being a monster. The two come with very, very strong degrees of stigma, one being more easier to get to grips with if you are at that point of your addiction than the other.
In my vernacular, so monster was something that which she stuck with, tried and true. I mean, she just stayed with that.
Right,
you'd have to accept
it came from you. The term
unless
came
you
from
wanted
you.
to argue.
The term came from you, didn't it?
It's very probable. It's possible. It's probable that I might have used that word, certainly.
Right, and in 2012, in fact, Elton John was one of your friends who was trying to help you get sober, correct?
Yes, sir.
And
Who has a lot of experience with substance abuse himself. If you've not seen Rocket Man, great film.
you sent him a message in 2012 where you thanked him for his help, and you said, quote, "I would have been swallowed up by the monster were it not for you. That is a simple fact." Isn't that true?
Yes. Again, the monster referring to
What does that prove?
alcohol and substances.
Correct. And you didn't send that message to Miss Heard. You sent that to Elton John. "I would have been swallowed up by the monster were it not for you." Correct?
Elton
Can you pull up Exhibit 408, please?
was a dear friend who has been sober for 40 years, 30 years. So he was
Going to be the voice of reason in that.
And he wanted me to get clean, sober. So Elton actually sent a fellow called Charlie Dunnett, who worked with Elton for years and years. And
Mr. Depp, I appreciate that. My only question was just to confirm that you had sent that message to Elton John, nothing else. Thank you.
So I'll just stop talking.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to be respectful of the court's time and the jury's time.
Sorry?
I just said I want to be respectful of the court's time and the jury's time, and I trust that you do too. So,
well, I don't feel that I'm wasting anyone's time, sir.
Could you pull up Exhibit?
Very well handled. Very well handled, right? Very well handled. We've all wavered from a point before. Everyone does it. Arguably me more than most. But everyone does it to a certain degree. So for him to pull that back towards the question that he asked, of course, that's well within his right to do that, and rather well within his requirements to do that, if the answer to the question has some kind of point over who said monster first. What matters is what it's connected to and the implications behind it. In terms of who said it first, we're arguing over words here, which is just ridiculous as a notion. But then to pop this in, I'm just trying to be respectful of the jury's time and the court's time, trying to elevate her position and deflate his. For him to say, well, I don't feel that I'm wasting anyone's time, immediately levels that playing field. So this is somebody, again, who is keenly aware of the only tactic at this stage in the video that has been presented as a way to prove that he is in the wrong, she is in the right, is to try and drag his character down further, when all he's done so far is be very open about things that are very difficult to be open about when you have an addiction of that degree, when you have demons in your closet in terms of abuse that you faced in childhood within that area. That's all he's done. So there is no wasting of time there, at least that I can see, for my 2 pennies.
Exhibit 408, please.
If you are struggling to lose weight and you're over 35, you must see this. People are burning
I don't want to see this.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to turn your attention to the bottom text on this page. And can you confirm that this is a text message that you sent on April 9th, 2015, while you were married to Amber, to your sister? Do you see that?
The last...
the last text on the one on the bottom.
Yes, I see that, yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for admission of 408 with all the identifiers redacted and everything except the last text redacted.
Same again, if he's going to follow it, he'll highlight buzzwords. If it is one of those dark texts.
Your Honor, we could approach it just very quickly.
They're approaching again. Hey. So there's going to be some discussion over the content of the message, which is fair enough when you deal with words like that. You've got to argue if it's admissible, if it's even relevant, right? What's the point in bringing these up if it has no particular concern? And that's all that I would imagine is being discussed there, because it would follow that train of reasoning. We have a text. We want to enter this in. Let's go and have a quick discussion about it. First of all, you could see that contempt smile from her, though. We saw that there, which again vanished equally speedily. This must be a big discussion that's happening. Here we go. Are we going? Mr. Rottenborn, let's do it. Come on. Drum roll. Yes? No? Maybe? He's thinking about it.
Want to lay eyes on that filthy whore, Amber A., most embarrassing. Did I read that right?
Maybe that was a little bit too far.
On April 9th, 2015.
Yes.
While you were married to Mr.
The lip bite, he knows what's coming again. Nervousness.
Someone named Sis, which may be her sister, you testified.
Yes.
You said, I'm all right. I ... though I never, ever want to lay eyes on that filthy whore, Amber A., most embarrassing. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
And when you called Amber that filthy whore, she was your wife at the time, correct?
Again, why is that relevant? Why is that relevant, right? Just because you hold the position of wife, if you're acting in the way that certainly at this stage the information seems to indicate that you are, what is wrong with describing you in as equally a terrible way, right? I know when I was going through my divorce with my ex-wife, many choice words were said about her that I text. Many choice words were said about me that she texts, mostly to each other. It's not relevant though to any particular point that we were making at the time. It was just an argument. When you put it in the context of here, it's only seeking to further try and heighten this vacuous, empty, flaccid notion that she is right and he is wrong. If she has done everything, which is a question that you can ask yourself when you're exploring rationale at this stage, if she has done everything that has been alleged, to describe her in a dirty way would be psychologically healthy. to try and let that out, to not bottle it up. Text messages don't hurt when those situations are as rife with instances that need to be observed higher when it comes to physicality at this stage, right? If you look at if you look at everything that's been brought up of the abuse from one side to another, of everything that she's done versus everything that he's said or done to himself.
Yes, sir.
Let's pull up Exhibit 427, unredacted, please.
Very well aware of this again. It's going to follow the same lines. It's going to be a description of her.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to direct your attention
Okay.
Is there another? Let's see. I'd like to direct your attention to the fourth text up from the bottom. Chat number 1616. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And that's a text message exchange between you and Jerry Judge on April 26th, 2015, just a couple of weeks after you referred to Amber as a filthy whore. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to and move for admission of this exhibit with the two text exchanges in that chat between him and Jerry Judge.
All right, well, why don't you show me what it would look like redacted?
Okay.
Can we do that?
Oh, come on.
It's just those two, Michelle?
Read the transcript. That's a buzzword for some people. Sorry.
You see this app right here? It's called Audible. There's actually a better way to make money on Amazon.
That's great and completely irrelevant. What we can say at this stage about the position of the scratching here is that Johnny Depp is getting warmer, physically warmer, because that's causing irritation on the skin that he's becoming aware of.
Just blow the text up, Michelle, of both of those. Mr. Depp, on April 26, 2015, Jerry Judge is your former security guy who passed away a couple years ago, right?
That's correct.
And he writes you and says, "Hi, boss. Just wanted to say if you and Amber need anything, just let me know. I will be there in 20 minutes. Johnny, it is lovely to see how you and Amber are so happy. The other day, watching the two of you sitting on the bench by the sea was fantastic. The two of you need happiness, and it is really great to see that. Love to you and Amber. XOXO, Jerry." Did I read that right?
You did.
And beneath that, you texted him back and you said, "Thank you, my dear Jerry. Very, very kind, mate. We've been perfect. All I had to do was send the monster away and lock him up. We've been happier than ever." All caps. "Love you, brother. JD." Did I read that right?
You did, sir.
Monster being the drugs and the alcohol.
Michelle, could you please pull up Exhibit 445, defendants? And in the text that we just saw, when you used the word monster, that Miss Heard wasn't on that text message, was she?
No, that was between Jerry and myself.
Thank you. Mr. Depp, I'd like to direct your attention in this message to the second text down, which is a text from you to Dr. Kipper, Dr. David Kipper, on June 28th, 2015.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yes, 26, 28 to 15 years.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of a redacted exhibit with simply that text. We're happy to redact the rest of it.
Is that text 139 or 137?
137, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
137.
No objection with
All
the
right,
proper
if we can
redactions.
Get those redactions before we publish. Or do you
This looks to
want-
be a change in topic then, if both of those guys couldn't see
we'll
it.
make the redactions right now and then
Okay.
publish that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Come on, get to it.
445 as redacted.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. In
Yeah.
evidence.
Thank you.
Chair movement again, displacement.
And you
She's
sent this
doing lots
text
of
on
this.
June 28th, 2015, and it said, you can blow up the text, Michelle, please.
Come on, Michelle.
Thank
Take
you,
a
my
leg, love.
darling Kipper. All those technical abbreviations left me flummoxed and in the dark. Soon, soon, I must see you and just hang out. My deformed finger and I have no friends. By the way, Amber and I have been absolutely perfect for 3 fucking months solid. I've locked my monster child away in a cage deep within, and it has fucking worked. We're goddamn best friends now. Amazing. Big love to you, my brother, JD. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
And Amber wasn't on that text when you told Dr. Kipper that you had locked your monster child away in a cage deep within, was she?
No, no.
Can we pull up Exhibit 435, please, unredacted?
If that lawyer is unfamiliar with abuse victims and their notion of hiding things that goes on, and again, I'm not drawing this specifically to him or specifically to her. You know, if the lawyer is at least not familiar with I would argue to be the psychological fact at this stage that people will go to great lengths to hide that which is truly going on when it is a matter of abuse, because there is a degree of shame, fear, anger, sadness, all of these things mixed to bear a vein to people that they don't really want to bear a vein to. Right? So to place that as verifiable that they have been happy for months, perfect for months, is flaccid, to say the least.
It's just the bottom text that I'm going to
See what he
direct
does with the
attention
next
to,
text,
Mr.
and then
Depp.
we'll
This
move
is
it on a
text
bit.
that you sent to Stephen Deuters on May 14th, 2015, right?
The last one,
Yep.
May 14th.
And Stephen Deuters is your personal assistant, or was your personal assistant at the time you were with Ms. Heard, right?
Yes, he's now my partner. And
Now he's the president of the European branch of Infinitum Nihil, right?
IN2, yes, sir.
Move for admission of a redacted version of this document with just the bottom text, Your Honor.
No objection.
All right, if you could just redact it just to the bottom text.
Thank you, Judge.
And
Penny Appeal's unique 100% zakat policy means 100% of your zakat reaches people like Ahmed.
All right, 435 in evidence as redacted.
you can see the consistent, constant modulations from her, though. The note-taking's been going on throughout the whole thing.
And on May 14th, 2015, you blow up that text, Michelle, please. You texted Mr. Deuters, need to discuss the news helicopters hovering outside the house this morning. I'm ready to shoot a motherfucker. But don't worry, the monster is not involved. Correct?
I see that, yes.
And Miss Heard wasn't on that text, was she?
No.
I'm angry, but I'm not on
Pull up
drugs.
Exhibit 196, please.
Which would be links to his fondness for privacy. No?
This on page 2, please. Are we on page 2?
Right, let's skip it on. So we're going from
So it's
50 minutes to 1 hour 10. Who's going to say something? Have they approached the bench at this stage? Certainly sounds that way. I do like that the stenographer is just not facing anybody. Like somebody sat in the naughty corner at school. Clearly I've skipped to the wrong time. Go another couple of minutes. Still on the texts.
That's fine, Your Honor. Thank you.
132.
Okay.
Actions and evidence.
Wow, this
Thank
is
you,
a
Your
long
Honor.
time for
Appreciate
text messages.
Mr. Depp, we're going to take a look at two text messages here, or 3 text messages. On August 4th, 2012, you exchanged text messages with Stephen Deuters, one from you to him and one from him to you. Do you see that midway through the page?
Yes.
And, Michelle, can you blow those up, please? In those text messages, you write to Mr. Deuters, your personal assistant, "Yay, where is the little baggie you built in LA?" And he says, "Special baggie, I gave you can in 1480 kitchen. Not sure where it went after that. Thought I heard you say something along the lines of, I know what to do with it, exclamation point." Did I read that right?
You did, sir.
All right. Can you scroll down to the text on the bottom, please? This is a text, Mr. Depp, where you say, "I use marijuana a lot," 3 exclamation points. "I take pot." I read that right, correct?
Yes, you did.
And this is a text that you sent on September 11th, 2012, to just scroll over to the left, Michelle. This is a text that you sent to Brian Warner. Brian Warner's Marilyn Manson, right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Let's pull up Exhibit 145, please.
So we've got a change in terms of activity, going back consistently more for rearranging that we saw before. I'd skipped it on, I just hadn't mentioned it. We factored it in there as well. We got the engagement of the lower back to obviously facilitate rearrangement, but that comes from a behavioral requirement to shift, to move, to free up, because we're becoming tense at this particular position. Right now, we could argue that the tension is down to muscular fatigue or down to emotional fatigue at this stage, right? Which could be, if you look at the inference viewpoints, could be down to the nature of the text messages in terms of the way that he described Amber at certain stages and feeling a semblance of guilt about that. But it also could be down to the way he feels about the cross-examination and that it's essentially proven nothing at this stage. It's been a case of, I read this, did I read that right? Yes. Tumbleweed goes through. Is there any point towards all of this back and forth? He's explained in great detail as to what the proverbial monster is at this time. It reminds me of that thing from Liar Liar so much. "I object, Your Honor." "Why?" "Because it's devastating to my case." Good call. Come on, guys. The tension's killing me. It appears to be killing Johnny as well. Hands have come much further together now over the groin area. So we've got a much more nervousness in terms of the response, in terms of the displacement.
To and from various people in 2012, right?
So this will either be stronger content or a different topic.
Text messages that I'd like to ask the witness about are the first two. And then the
Smile Direct Club. These are Smile Direct Club aligners. They're laser.
Good test of your control.
We have no objection to the omission with proper redactions.
Okay, you could redact just those first two.
And I'd move for the admission of that document as redacted.
Sure, as soon as we get it redacted.
So we've got that changing to leaning in terms of the finger tapping. So there's more clear-cut signs of him just being done with Rottenborn at this stage now. There is signs that he's under a kind of rehabilitation program in terms of his skin, the fondness for cleanliness. If it is that the fondness for cleanliness wasn't there before, that's certainly something that is imbued into you as part of certain rehabilitation programs. It can be kind of like an ab reaction, as hypnotists would call it.
That's fine. No objection.
Okay. All right, 145 and evidence as redacted.
Thank you, Your Honor. So this text exchange, Mr. Depp, between you and Marilyn Manson on September 11th, 2012, you text him, "The pill and the plant stuff keep me calm and detached." And he texts you back, "I have lots of reefers, many reefers, and cookies, which are weird, but pot is funny, backwards gateway drug." Do you see that?
I do, sir.
Did I read that right?
You did.
Highlighted the whole way through. You did. Yes.
You can take
Eyebrows
that,
on
Michelle,
point.
please. And if you could please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 1089.
Wish I had a chair that looked as comfortable as his.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to ask you about this photo. This is a photo of 4 pretty huge bags of marijuana, correct?
Yes, sir, that is a lot of marijuana.
A lot of marijuana.
Yes, sir.
And the coffee cup that's right next to that, that's a coffee cup for your company, Infinitum Nile, right?
That's correct.
And the furniture, this is taken in one of your residences?
It's taken in the studio, the recording studio.
In the recording studio, okay. Your Honor,
Going further to add detail. He's not shying away from this.
Defendant's Exhibit 1089 and
Nope.
permission to publish.
No objection,
All right,
Your Honor.
1089 evidence.
So this picture of these 4 giant bags of pot, at least 4, was taken in your recording studio. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was a yes, sir. That was. I've just said that, dude. Pay attention.
You can take that down, Michelle.
Are you at a good break point, Mr. Rottenborn?
Sure, the break would be fine.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Let's go ahead and take our morning recess of 15 minutes.
Okay. There we go. Wow. Loads of your comments, guys. Wow, let's go through it. Okay. I'm on full screen, so I couldn't see most of your stuff, so let's have a look. Where are we? Right back to the start. Loving the insight. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, rather, Mr. Drake. Craig, leaks, movements, tense chest, all of this. It's my favorite hipster psychoanalysis. Thank you. I appreciate that, Sunny Exposure. Not counting his words, speech pattern or speed and nature of the way it is expressed. Absolutely, the speech pattern is very much maintained throughout. Prepared as well, you guys are seeing too. All the privacy noted. The media is rigged. Sunny Exposure thinking UK trial was rigged. He had no choice but to go live. She and Murdoch have had control of the narrative so far. I don't know anything about what Murdoch has control over or what he doesn't, but if you read, I read a few of the more recent articles from American publications, and it's certainly very clear in terms of which side of the narrative they are falling on. Suffice it to say, it will be very interesting indeed when she takes the stand. But yes, there has been things like this as well. AH is on audio giving JD Xanax, but she's also been on audio trying to talk about the severity of how hard she was hitting him, and that he doesn't have the right to say that he was punched. He was absolutely nuts. What do I think of AH mirroring JD's outfits? Nothing really. In essence, there is. You could imprint any particular argument that you have onto this, but what we know of celebrity trials in this way is that most people. By people, I mean the companies, if they have an opportunity to put forth some of their designs onto a global scale, they're going to do it. But you could make certain arguments that she is still trying to align herself to him. You could make certain arguments that she is trying to match herself to him to try and lower the truthful stand that he's gotten at this stage at the moment. For us to have a clear-cut view, there would need to be much more data and research done on this to have anything that is legitimate for us to base this on. It is a very thin observation for us to make. Oh, there you go. Anne mentioning his glasses are darker due to a vision issue. He is legally blind in his left eye. There you go. I didn't know that. But there were a couple of articles that I read about his sunglasses that prompted me to mention that as well. In that they were stating the rock star status should be perceived as somebody trying to detract away from the proceedings. He's putting his veneer and his cool above all, as opposed to the truth being pushed forward. Hello, friend. Finally caught you live for the first time in the 2 years I followed you. Thanks for covering this. Oh, well, Miss McCarthy, thank you very much for your persistence in sticking with us. And thank you very much for stopping by. Rottenborn is still learning to read. Well, oh dear. Here we go. Turn up the volume, please, for the courtroom. Yeah, absolutely. Now, the reason I do this is because back and forth I choose to either pause points or talk over them. So sometimes the volume is quite low at particular moments, but you will still be able to hear it if you turn your volume up a little bit. Awkward and annoying. I am very well aware of this, but it is possible, right? It will just be a couple of moments. It will feel like I'm shouting at you rather than talking to you. It appears like they were trying to induce dissociation massively. Helen's from Sweden. She just read what all's saying, but she thinks that it's Amber's lawyers. They underestimate Johnny. Absolutely. I'm going to have to catch up later, Ben. Thank you for this. It's fascinating and heartbreaking in equal measure. You're very welcome, and I completely agree. So, wow, the comments coming in thick and fast is almost too much for me to keep up with. Aussie Insider, I've not seen you for ages. How you doing? There we go. Very much on a par with everything that's happening. It's so beautiful where you're at. All the soft lighting is relaxing. Where is it? My volume is on full. It's too low. Other than that, it's interesting to watch this with you. Okay, well, duly noted, Alu. I'll keep that in mind for next time. Thanks for the feedback. But yeah, with that in mind, guys, I think we've got a pretty clear insight into the non-verbals that are being displayed from all elements within this video. So much so to the point that we've been able to make reliable predictions about what's going to happen before they happen. Right, and we could only really do that if we were on the right lines, if we were on the right wavelengths with what it is that we're seeing. So yeah, we're gonna obviously call back to this when she gets up there, whenever that is. Don't know, but we're gonna do that as well, just so we can hear the other side of the story. With that in mind, if there's anything else that you want for me to take a look at, or push my nose into, try and be a bit nosy, then let me know. Let me know. 1 second, Aussie Insider just making a point. For those who are unaware, Amber was not a party to the UK trial. It was JD versus the Sun. She was only a witness. Good point. Well made. It gives us further understanding to somebody's position and where it should be at in terms of that. So, you've been busy with work. You're back in action now. Well, nice to see you again. Nice to see you again. So, to everybody that has given of your time to watch this, thank you very much. Genuinely appreciate it, and your interest as well. Love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Let's explore this. Right? Let's explore this being people reading, not necessarily specific towards. This particular trial. So with that in mind, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. I wish you all the very best for the rest of your week, wherever it is, wherever you are. And I'll catch you on Friday for the podcast when this comes out. It is the interview with my tattooist. But yeah, until that time, talk to you soon, guys. See you later.